Another pattern I've noticed over the years is the tendency and desire to overcomplicate things in hopes that we can simplify, as opposed to just simplifying from the get-go. So for clients who feel like, okay, in order to do this, if this, then that logic, right? So it's like, in order to have this outcome, I need to do these 50,000 steps that are going to drain the F out of me, that I need to pay, 10 people thousands of dollars to be able to help me overcomplicate this, so that there's like no way that I could actually ever do this by myself or tweak the things. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if someone was hiring a copywriter, a designer, and a developer all for a sales page for this offer that they have yet to even test, when in reality, they could just send an email to 5 people today to say, hey, I'm looking to work with so-and-so, who's so-and-so. Anybody come to mind? People that you already know, past clients, friends, people who know you and know that the value that people would get. And then you're just actually letting people know, hey, I've got space on my client roster. I'm looking for established business owners who want to burn it all down and or want to run away from the internet, but they don't actually really want to do that, and they can't figure out how they can actually enjoy their lives again when business is in its current state. Know anybody? Anybody come to mind? Like letting conversations be that simple and then seeing where it goes. Just kind of like inside out, baby stepping, what I call the bare mini. Like, what's the least amount that you can do for the max result? Or I have an Uptime Empires podcast episode called Profitable Priorities, where it's like we do this whole, I won't say we, because I don't know if you do it, I won't speak for you, but oftentimes in my life and in many of my clients' experiences, it's like there's this song and dance, let me overcomplicate it because maybe complication means value, and I feel like I have to work hard to earn it, or whatever it is, whatever the story may be tangled up in there. And it's like, let me see if I can overcomplicate this. And honestly, part of it is just a delay tactic, because maybe you're afraid of what may come on the other side if it works. And maybe you're afraid of what may come on the other side if it doesn't work. But the overcomplicating can just be like, it's delayed. It's delayed gratification, but it could also be delayed disappointment. So I would just encourage you to think and look at, if you're overcomplicating something, like everything that you're doing in your business, like take it under the microscope. Is this really necessary for the end that I'm trying to create? The means that justifies the end. What if you could just skip the means and get to the end? What's the shortest path? What's your path of least resistance that maybe you haven't even let yourself think of because you were following someone else's system and they did it this way, so you thought maybe I need to do it this way? It's like that story anecdote that people talk about where it's like there was a family and they would cut the edges of the pot roast, and then eventually the granddaughter was like, why do we do this? Like, why did grandma do this, and why do we continue to do this? And it was just because grandma's pot was too small, so she would cut the edges off the pot roast. And it's like, oh, okay. So if you take the projects that you're working on, whether it's in life or business, and just ask, is there a simpler way? Is there a shortcut? Not in terms of like making major sacrifices to the outcome or the quality of the work or anything like that, but like, do you really need to make this such a production? I mean, for me, for example, in this podcast, I'm sitting here, even though my kiddos are talking out in the living room and you might be able to hear them, or the dehumidifier or whatever, but I intentionally want to be able to sit here in my office after school or whenever, wherever I am, and be able to send you my thoughts and messages via my phone. Of course, right now I'm on my phone, but then I download it via Voxer. So there is that step. I could use voice memos, for example, and not have to download it via Voxer desktop, but I don't like how sound sensitive voice memos are as opposed to Voxer. I like that there's a little bit of a buffer so that I'm less likely to be making super uneven audio messages in your ear if I use Voxer as opposed to voice memos. In my experience, I don't know. Oh, now maybe you hear the thunder. But that's a shortcut for me, like path of least resistance. That's what this is. It's going to be all over the place. And some people will be annoyed and not listen to these messages, but my actual people in my inner circle and people who would enjoy being my clients will enjoy the musings in whatever form that they're in. So I don't need to add all these hoops like, okay, I need to have total quiet. need to have my Blue Yeti mic and my pop filter. I need to then send it off to an editor who can add the intro and the outro. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love the sound of crisp, clear audio on the Naptime Empires podcast. I do love it. And there's absolutely a place for it, but I'm not in the mood for it right now. The goal here is just connection and just having more conversations with you, as opposed to just keeping stuff in private conversations and notebooks and Google Docs. So that is one example of how I'm applying it. And I'm just wondering, is there something in your business or your life where you're overcomplicating it? And now that I'm pointing it out, it's coming to mind right now as I'm saying this. If so, let me know. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it, and maybe bounce an idea back over your way. If you're like, is there a simpler way, something that I'm not seeing, then message me. Let's discuss. Because chances are high that for one reason or another, you might be adding more obstacles in between you and what you actually want to experience. And you could just like unlock it just like that if you had outside perspective. So that's the first question is there something coming to mind that you're like, yeah, I don't think this needs to be so complicated, or it doesn't need to come first. There's actually something that's even simpler I could do that would get me that result. And then the other piece to this is why. If you are overcomplicating it, it's powerful to reflect on and understand, why are you overcomplicating it? Like I said, are you afraid it's going to work out? And then what? Like, what are you afraid of specifically if it works out and you achieve that end in mind? And then what if it doesn't work out? What are you afraid of if it doesn't work out and you don't? Like, okay, and then nobody signs up or nobody listens and nobody responds, whatever. Then what? And then follow that all the way down the track. Okay, let me know what comes up as you're listening to this. For real, I would love to hear from you. And let me know any requests for future conversations. Okay, technically that was the end of the episode, but since you're still here, 1, I'd love to thank you for spending part of your day with me, and 2, I'd love to ask you if you would take 30 seconds, maybe 60, to leave a rating and review in your podcast app before you tap out today. If you've already done that, it's amazing. Please send me a screenshot so I can thank you personally, and know that sharing this episode with a friend has the same magical powers, and I deeply appreciate both. Also, in case you're listening to the end to see if I ever actually introduce myself, hi! My name is Nikki Elledge Brown. I'm the host and author of Naptime Empires and this here On Her Terms podcast. You can find me around the internet at Nikki Elledge Brown in most places, but what you may appreciate most is actually over at onherterms.com. It's what I call the insider library. It's where you can get inside scoop, first listen rights, email updates every time there's a new episode, and then special insider only bonus content. It's all over in our private feed. Okay, that's a wrap for real. I'll meet you in the next episode.